Hello and welcome to the Matthew Alton Art channel again. For those of you that don't know, I'm an artist based in the Midlands in the UK, and I've been trying to work as a full-time artist since May 2025 when I was made redundant. And this channel documents my journey of what I paint and the exhibitions I get into and those sorts of things. So it's sort of trying to document the journey of my artistic journey as an artist. Those of you who do follow the channel will have noticed that I've been doing quite a lot of fruit still lives recently in oil paints, and that was because I decided to do a focus month on fruit still lives in oils, with the idea that I would start working in series this year. So the first month where I've done this was February, and the idea was that I would return to something that I'm quite used to doing and that's quite popular from a sales point of view, and that is my fruit still lives. This is the final one of the ones that I'd planned to do. I'd actually planned to do 6 in the month of February, but I ran out of time, and this is actually number 5 for those of you that have been following the progress of those. A bit of a shame I didn't hit the 6, but I'm going to do more of these focus months in the year ahead, and hopefully the next one I will manage the 6. Can't really do more than 6 in a month, I don't think. Certainly not at the moment, but we'll see how we go. You can see that this is a lemon and lime, which is the last reference photograph that I used. I took the photograph a while back, actually, in 2025, when I was doing some other fruit still lives. And this is the one that I used for this painting. Well, here you can see that I've drawn out the reference photograph onto some Arches Huile paper. All of these paintings in February have been done on Arches Huile paper, which is a special paper that has coated fibres to allow you to paint oil paints on it. I've actually gessoed it because I found that it becomes a bit less absorbent if you do that. So I gessoed it before I started, even though I didn't need to with this paper. Those of you who've watched all of the other 4 videos, it's a pleasant change on this one to be not painting reds and oranges, really. The other paintings that I've done have been of Royal Gala apples and tangerines. So I just fancied doing something totally different colour-wise. So you can see, as I've done with all of these the previous still lives, I'm just blocking out on the paper, putting a first layer of oil paint on the paper, and then it becomes less absorbent after that point anyway, and it's easier to blend the colours together. And covering the white of the paper sort of helps you to balance the tones better as you progress with the painting. This one is a smaller one of the series. It's another 20 by 20 centimetre painting, and it's painted ready to go in a ready-made frame that I've got. The lemon and lime, as you saw in the reference photograph, are resting on a blue cloth, which contrasts nicely with the yellow and green. Obviously, blue and yellow make green, so it's quite a complementary colour palette, really. You can see that I'm leaning on a larger brush there, resting the brush on the edge of the board that I've got the paper taped to, so that I don't smudge the work that I've already done. Using quite a small brush because this is quite a small painting. I used a bigger one for the background, but I'm using quite a small brush at this point. And again, I'm just blocking in roughly where everything is going. No detail yet, and for the detail I'll move to a smaller brush shortly. Whenever you're painting a still life, it's about observing the colours that are there and the textures and trying to recreate those using the paint. So I suppose you can see that quite well on the lemon already. In your mind's eye, most people would paint a if you asked a child, for instance, to draw a lemon, they would make it really quite bright yellow, because obviously in bright light, the skin of the lemon is quite bright. But here we've got light coming in from the right hand side of the work, and actually the skin of the lemon is quite brown and orange if you actually observe it from the reference photograph at the beginning. And where it catches and goes through the skin it's a bit transparently, that's where there is bright yellow, but actually the bits that are in shadow are quite brown. So just like when I've often said in my videos, you need to observe what's there, not paint what you think is there from a shape point of view. You also need to do that with colours. You know, what you think should be there isn't necessarily what is there. And when you try to analyse the colours that are in a photographic reference, you can find all sorts of colours that you wouldn't necessarily think of. There pinks, and I mean in the oranges and the tangerines that I did, for instance, a lot of the highlights were quite bright pink, which you wouldn't think, but closely observing allows you to see those colours. And you get better and better at that the more that you do of that observation, I've found. Even the pith on the lemon there, it is brighter than I'd put it in initially, but it isn't white by a long way, even with the light shining on it. And there I'm just adding some blues to that brown part of the skin that's in shadow. And that's of course because the bright light is reflecting from the blue cloth behind, and you get slight blue highlights in the shadow areas. And you wouldn't associate blue with lemon, certainly. You can see that I've put some slight highlights on the actual segments of the cut lemon there, just to indicate the light reflecting on the shiny wet parts of the actual lemon segments. And I'm now currently just adding some pips. And of course where the pips are, you have to remember that the segments are quite transparent and the light doesn't get underneath those pips. So there's actually darker areas of the lemon where the light is stopped from getting to the actual lemon by the pips above them. Also trying to now put a bit of a shadow that is coming from the lime next to the lemon there. And that's something I struggle with a little bit, in that that segment actually glows, the one that's just emerging from the shadow. And it's quite difficult to get that brightness next to a shadow, but I think I'm overall fairly successful by the end of the painting. You can see that I've moved to quite a small brush now, and I complete the rest of the painting, apart from when I return to the background, with that small brush. I think to a certain extent you can get a bit too precious with detail, and it's certainly something that I'm guilty of quite a lot. I sometimes look at other people's work and admire the fact that they get the texture of the lemon or fruit or whatever it is that they're painting with much more broad brush strokes, I think. So it's a bit more illustrative rather than realist, I suppose, the work that they end up with. But I do, as a whole, like to be quite realist with my work. Not photographic realist, but I want you to see the brush strokes that the painting is built up of, but it at least needs to look quite real. The light and the textures that you can see on whatever it is that I'm painting. Certainly with oil paints, because it's a medium that allows you to be more realist, I think. You can get a much better variety of textures implied by oil paint than you can with gouache, for instance, to me anyway. although I do like gouache as well. You can now see that I'm working on the lime and gradually building up the detail on that. I've got some blue reflected light in the shadow areas of that as well, having to darken the shadow areas now. And the reflected highlight from the lemon is a bit too bright at the moment, and you'll see me working on that. I'm sort of indicating the pits on the skin of the lime by just dabbing darker areas at the edge of the shadows, and also you can see that the highlight itself is made up of small white dabs, as if the light is just catching the highlight, the lumps on that pitted skin. And you'll find that you don't need to do that really in any other area apart from where the transition from shadow to light is, and highlight to normal skin, and that just overall gives the viewer the impression that the whole lime is a pitted skin. Toning down that highlight now to make it look more natural, because of course although the light reflecting from the bright yellow lemon is quite bright, it's only reflected light, it's not coming from the light direction, which should be the lightest area of that lime, i.e. on the right hand side of it, well, top right of it. So you can see that this is now just a matter of closely observing the reference photograph in this case, or if you've got a still life setup in front of you, the actual objects in front of you, and trying to observe the colours, the textures, and trying to recreate those using the small brush and adding the detail. And it can take quite a long time. I think this painting took about 3 hours, because it's quite small. And of course you get quicker the more often you do it, and I've done quite a few of these, as I said, over February, so I'm quite used to the way that the paint goes on to this surface. I've become used to the gessoed surface of the Arches Huile paper. You can see that now I've painted the actual fruit itself. I've darkened the highlights because it's quite strong directional light in this photo reference. And if you flick between this and the actual reference photo, the background isn't really that accurate compared to what's in the photograph, but I'm just wanting to give the impression of light falling across a blue cloth that has some ripples in it, I suppose. It's not perfectly flat, just to add some interest as much as anything else. But the actual folds in the cloth are not representative of what's in the actual photograph particularly, but I'm just trying to get the overall impression of the light and the shadow, just to add some interest around the main subject, which is the fruit. And those of you that have watched the recent fruit videos, you'll know that those have all been on my mantelpiece, which is painted black in my studio. And I haven't been very accurate with that either. It's just an impression of a background, enough to make it look like what it is roughly, but the eye of the viewer should focus on the actual central objects really. And that goes the same for this sort of slightly rippled cloth that I'm adding here. You can see how blendable oil paint is, because it's wet still, and it remains wet for a couple of days really, depending on which colour you're using. A bit less so on paper actually. It dries slightly quicker on the Arches Huile because it absorbs into the paper to a certain extent. So if anything, using the paper makes the the experience of oil paints a bit quicker. I also use medium, gambling medium, and that can dry the paint a bit quicker than it would normally dry as well if you add that to the paint. I don't use too much of that really. You'll find as well with practice, if you do oil paintings yourself, that different colours dry quicker than other colours as well. So often titanium white or paints that have been mixed with quite a lot of titanium white, like this pale blue of the background, will take longer than earth colours, for instance, to dry. So, you know, the browns and the ochres and things like that, they dry quicker than the whites. You just have to be aware of that when you're working, really. You can see that the paint is moving around and blending quite nicely still because it's wet. And that's it about done. Well, this is the final painting. I'm sorry that this video is a bit later than I said it was going to be. I said I was going to hopefully get the 5th video of this series out before the end of February, but I only painted this painting the day before, 27th it was, of February, so I couldn't really get the video out straight away after that. It's taken me a while to edit it as well. But it's here now. I hope that you've enjoyed watching the video. Overall, I'm quite pleased with the result here and with the results over the whole month. If you haven't seen any of the videos, then do check those out. They're in the channel ready for you to look at. Do comment on the video. Let me know your thoughts. Have you painted with oils? Do you find any of the tips that I have talked about in those videos useful? Do you use a different technique? In which case, let me know. Okay, well, thanks for being very patient and getting to the end of this video if you've got this far. Do give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new here. That will really help the channel grow. And I will see you on the next one. It might be a little break before I do another one because this month, March, is going to be a month where I don't focus on a particular subject and I can flit around between things that I want to do. So it might be that it's quite a sketchy month and I'll be working in my sketchbook, that sort of thing. And hopefully the next focus month will be April, where I'll focus on one subject or a theme, maybe a particular medium or maybe varied media. We'll see how that goes, but hopefully April will be another focus month of some kind. Okay, well, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.